Hey, what is up? This is Alan, and you're listening to the Young Adult Podcast. This is a space built to encourage and equip this generation. We talk faith, culture, relationships, and what it looks like to follow Jesus in real life. If this episode speaks to you, make sure to like, subscribe, and share with a friend. It helps us reach even more young adults just like you. Thanks for being here. Now let's jump into today's episode. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Young Adult Podcast. My name is Alan. I'm so glad to be with you guys for episode 3. And look at this space. Are you kidding me? We'll switch the angles back and forth. We'll give you guys a tour. Man, if you on my TikTok, you've probably already seen the space, but we're so glad you guys are here. I have an incredible guest. I just want to get straight to it. Can everybody in the room today put their hands together for the one, the only, Sammy Rodriguez? Come on. Cheers, cheers, cheers.
Shalom.
Sammy,
Amen.
You're a pastor, a leader, future church planter, husband, father, been around the world. You've done like the most craziest stuff. We were just talking before. He's seen every state except for Alaska.
Saving that.
I'm
saving it for maybe a cruise with my family. Probably going to bring my kids to it, but yeah, I've had the privilege to travel for sure. And I got to say, man, this place is so dope. Team is fire.
Yeah.
The Young Adult Podcast. Bro, this is just the beginning. Yeah. So we're pumped, bro. We need this. We need you to keep creating this space. So I'm honored to be here with you,
Thanks,
bro.
Man.
Yeah.
Question, just off the jump.
Let's go.
We'll talk about maybe some like your history, where you've been, and stuff like that. Yep. But just off the jump, like, who is Sammy Rodriguez when all the lights are off, when Instagram isn't rolling? Like, who are you at your core? What are like maybe some of your values, things that you live by? Like,
for sure.
Maybe just like enlighten some of the people, like a scripture that is like convicted you so deep that, you know, I sometimes we talk about this as friends, like what would our Instagrams look like, or what would our youth ministries look like if we couldn't see what other youth pastors were doing? You know, I think sometimes we look inward. I'm like, what would Alan Walters look like if I didn't have Instagram, TikTok, all this kind of stuff?
For sure.
Because, so who are you? Like,
that's a great. Well, again, if you Google it, there's a lot of Sammy Rodriguez out there. You know, which I've had a few. We'll talk about some of those months. But the other Sammy, we so much love for him, and grew up with the family a bit in Northern California. But I would say for me, again, for those who I don't know, been in ministry for about 20 years.
Wow.
So this summer is going to be 20 years in full-time ministry. Yeah. When you ask me what's a verse that marks me, I think of, Matthew 9, where it talks about the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few.
Wow.
And then it says, the Lord says, pray earnestly to the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers. And then right after in chapter 10, he sends them out. Another verse that will always mark me from my missions days, but just living life on mission, is the Great Commission, right? Where Jesus says, all authority has been given me, therefore go make disciples of all nations. So for me, one of the things that marked me early on from many mentors and voices and just the Lord is being a catalyst.
Wow.
To accelerate what usually takes a certain amount of time, a catalyst accelerates the timeline of it. So I have a huge heart to see people saved. I have a huge heart to see people discipled and poured out. And what's funny is if you would have asked me, because I'm 36 now, I guess 36 is Unk age now. That's what I've heard.
That's what they say. Yeah, that's what they say.
Which I love it. Yeah, I'm so excited.
Unk, what's up, Unk?
I'm ready for it. But if you would ask me in my 20s, obviously started when I was 17, would I be in as a pastor? I would say, man, I love the church, but I don't see it.
Yeah.
And I love how the trajectory of the Lord and the timeline of the Lord has evolved into my wife and I getting ready to church plant, So I think, and when you say like lights are off, everything's, I can't see around, like a lot of my background was stuff on universities and high schools with a group called Circuit Riders and Carry the Love, and help kind of be a part of the core group of that. And I just believe that the Bible said the harvest was plentiful. Yeah. And I wanted to say like, hey, it doesn't say the harvest is plentiful except in America or except in California. Yeah. We put those things on places. The harvest is plentiful everywhere. So that's kind of what I look back to and just want to be about the business, you know? So that's what I would say. What else would I be doing? We'd be golfing. We talked about this off the pod, which we'll talk about later. Let me encourage all the youth pastors too. I don't know.
Come on, I see
that camera.
Tell them.
Listen, guys, please listen. Just get into golf now. I know you're thinking like, yo, I'm a hoop. I'm gonna play basketball. I'm gonna play whatever it is. Just trust me. You don't want to suck at golf at 40, okay?
You don't.
So just get into it now.
Yeah.
And you're gonna be so much better. Is that not true?
That is so true. That's the advice I took about a month ago. And
Don't you wish you got into it earlier?
I wish I would have just never played baseball. I wish I would have done golf in high school. But I will say, every single time I've gotten significantly better. We went to the range the other day.
Yeah.
I'm unrecognizable.
Right?
I'm like, who am I? You know,
That's what I'm talking about. But you're a different breed, you know. But okay, so I know you probably answered this question, but for yourself, everything's off, right? Lights are off. How about you? Like, what marks you? Who are you? Like, what do you want to be known as? You know, what comes to mind for you?
I think the first thing, I mean, obviously I'm a husband first.
Yeah.
When everything off is everything, everything's off, like that's who I invest my time into, enjoy spending my time with. And I really think, you know, I'm just a disciple maker at the end of the day. Like if the church shuts down and, you know, and it doesn't exist for whatever reason, and the ministry doesn't exist, and budget and funding gets cut, I'm like, who am I? I think in the last couple of years, I've actually wrestled with attaching myself with the idea of being a pastor, or attaching myself to the idea of doing ministry. And, you know, as I've talked about like the illness and the sickness stuff that I've gone through, one of the biggest lessons that I learned was like, if I didn't have the ministry, I'd still be okay. And even when I was not able to preach because I was so sick, there was still people in my house. We were still hanging out with friends, still cooking for them, still having my home open for everybody. And so I realized at the end of the day, it isn't the church that makes us a disciple maker. It's like a conviction, you know, it's a mandate. Like 100%. The Lord has commanded us to go and make disciples. And so I think at the end of the day, that is who I am. I think I love, you know, we're talking extracurriculars too.
Of course.
I'm a golfer now.
Yeah, come on, somebody.
Of course. And
you're gonna be great.
Kid. The lights are off, right? I think yours didn't have a label on it. The lights are off.
Mine is nameless and faceless, guys.
Anonymity, that'll preach.
Hallelujah. Yeah. Come on, somebody. Pick it up and preach
It's what's
it.
inside.
Have you done that?
It's what's inside. That's what counts.
Have you done the pick it up and preach it?
Just randomly here and there. I mean, I'm a youth pastor, so randomly the students will just be like, hey, can you preach this? And so I'm preaching tissue boxes. And I'm preaching all this kind of stuff. But anyways, hey, Sammy, I love like your heart for the missions and how it's like kind of transferred into like the local church. What I do know about my circle of friends and a lot of my students that I pastor is they love circuit riders. Like they go crazy for it. The music, the worship, the environment, the Monday nights, the greenhouse on Thursdays, all the Send stuff that they're doing, which is coming to California, by the way, next year. Can you just give me a highlight? Like, I know there's so much stuff that you could talk about, but like, is there a story? Maybe two. I mean, it's hard to narrow it down. Something that sticks out. It could be something miraculous, or maybe something the Lord did in your heart. You know, like what's something that like jumps out at you, sticks out at you when you think about the circuit rider days?
Yeah, man, it's so fun. So, just context for people that don't know much of the circuit riders. We moved to Huntington Beach in 2011.
Yeah,
it was stirred out of a heart for really that verse we were talking about.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, okay, I agree with Alan. Got to preface, you know, husband, father.
Yeah.
No, he's thinking biblically. Might know. But it was at a Harvest Plentiful, Laborers Are Few. But we wanted to run a school on evangelism. And this is back in 2011. We had some of the best speakers, artists coming. And we felt like the Lord said, don't publish any of the names. And like, if you are into any recruiting, if you're into any event planning, that's kind of how you get people to come. Yeah. And this isn't just like an event. It was a 5-week school. The picture on it was like, a guy on a horse, circuit riders, right, which they came from John Wesley, which John Wesley said, if you give me 100 men that fear God and hate sin, with those alone, I'll change the world. And he got 300 circuit riders.
Wow.
And essentially one of those was Francis Asbury, who ends up coming to America. There's a whole revival history we could talk about later.
Yeah.
But the picture we had as the graphic was like a black and white picture of a rider on a horse. And it was like the horse looks depressed, the rider looks depressed. And it was one of those things where like people are calling in and being like, so what are we going to do at the school as circuit riders? And we're like, I don't know. We're like, are we going to learn how to ride horses? We're like, I don't know. Should we? You know, but we felt from the Lord, don't publish any of the big speakers, any of the big worship artists. I'm going to show you that I am calling a generation.
Wow.
Back in 2011. And so the day comes for the school, 300 fiery-eyed revivalist evangelists show up on the island where we're running it for 5 weeks of training. And the plan was to do like 10 to 15 different outreaches. Well, a few weeks into it, the Lord started speaking to a bunch of the students and our mentors who were the mom and pops of circuit riders, Brian and Christy Brent. Brian passed away a few years ago. Christy is still here in HB. And long story short was like, hey, we want to send a majority of these students to Huntington Beach. And so what we did was we sent 200 students to Huntington Beach, and for 2 weeks we did one-on-one evangelism. And we saw a few hundred people getting saved on the streets, crazy stories, and all that stuff. And so I would say some of those things like obviously come to mind, but then from 2011, 2012, there was, 5 of us living at the Brent's house.
Wow.
And now from 2012 to 2026, I think there's over 200 something on staff, all volunteer, raising their own support to do ministry. There's hundreds of students that come out, thousands of events. But one of the things when you're asking that, I think I was preaching this a week or two ago at Patria. I was thinking about early days of like kind of circuit rider starting stuff. And with a team of us, we had a heart. I initially started doing stuff on Ivy League universities. So I was 20 at the time, long hair.
Wow.
Like Harry.
Let's go.
Can we cut to him? Just like maybe a little pan, picture, maybe a little.
I'll take a picture and upload it after.
That'd be so dope. Long hair, right? And we felt the call to go to Ivy League universities, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, all over.
Wow.
And we had no plan. I mean, we had no money. It was 8 of us. This was back in 2008.
Dang.
And we were like, what are we going to do? Well, we were broke, college age. We weren't college students. We were college age.
Yeah.
So we just had a free prayer, free healing signs on cardboard boxes, a guitar and a djembe, and we'd set up in the middle of campus. And God would just bring students to us.
Wow.
And we pray for people, and people were getting saved and healed, and we were doing a ton of outreach. So that's cool how the Lord just like little by little breadcrumbs kind of led us into certain things. But going forward to the circuit riders, I remember being in Huntington Beach, 2012, probably 13, and we had been on a few campuses, but nowhere near the number we wanted to. And the Lord put in our team's heart, hey, would you put the top 1,000 universities on a big map of the states and actually look at where they're at? And one of our friends pinned every pin. And the dream was, hey, we don't have any impact. We have a little bit of impact, but we are believing for impact on the top 1,000 universities.
Wow.
And it's one of those audacious, crazy, recklessly bold, rash goals. But it's because it was impossible for us, but possible for God.
Yeah.
And now looking back years later, I jumped out of circuit riders, a few years ago, but it's obviously always family, and still seeing the impact of what God's doing on a grassroots level. So those are some of the things that I was, like thinking of. Obviously, there's so many stories we could go into, but it's just fun to see when God speaks something. God is the God of the impossible.
For sure.
God's the one who wants to do the crazy things. So if something's stirring in you, don't think about what you can do only.
Yeah.
That's in your grace. What's something that's impossible? You're like, there's no way this could happen. And I would say that's what the circuit riders was, is like, there's no way this can happen. God, we trust you. And then God just continued to show up. And I mean, there's stories after stories we can talk about, but.
I've heard it said that like if your dream is too small, then your God is too small.
Yep.
That to dream big, like the impossible. And the thing I love about what you said, and I think you were kind of hitting on, is like it was a group of people.
Yep.
Like it's not just a goal. Like I'm going to achieve this thing.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like there's a group of people that says I'm going to go and take the world for Jesus.
Yeah.
I think as I look at like the local church, I look at my life. I think maybe answering your question, that's what I want to be remembered by. Is like not just somebody who, did the ministry, planted the church, did the podcast, had the influence, all that kind of stuff. It's like, who did I bring with me?
Yeah.
The thing I love about Jesus is it was Jesus and the disciples. Pastor Dan wrote a whole book on who's your and. It was always Jesus and the disciples, Jesus and the disciples. And the people who have made it and it's only the top is because they didn't bring anybody with them. I think about if I were to leave somewhere like a ministry, did I leave it in better hands, and who's taking over? Did they take it over better? I think about when I'm gone off this earth one day, who's going to take over like the legacy? And I think a lot of times legacy, as you're talking about like the Brents, and you're talking about like think about all the people they invested into.
Totally.
And now there's people like you, and then you're investing into those people. When you think about a legacy, like what like jumps out at you? Like, I mean, because we're talking to young adults. But when I think about the idea of legacy, is I think about being 20. I'm about to be 29. No, let's go. That's crazy. I'm about to be 29. Okay.
Let's go.
I'm about to age out of young adult age. I'm just an adult now.
Well, people always extend it. There's certain places that people are trying to be like
30-ish.
Yeah.
18 to 30-ish.
Even trying to go to Fort, I'm like, yo, I didn't know.
No, that's not young
get
adult.
out of
Yeah,
here,
join
you
a
know?
men's group, start a family.
Yeah. Get married.
I think about legacy, and I think about like lineage, like who comes after me.
Yep.
And I think that's what you're talking about, like when the lights go off, who
Yeah.
am I discipling?
Yep.
Is because I don't want to just be known as like somebody with influence at a time. I don't want to be known as somebody with, popularity, like all that
Yeah.
stuff. It's cool, and you could steward it well, and the Lord will use it.
Yeah, for sure.
But I've thought of people who have an insane like spiritual lineage, have done so much for the kingdom, but nobody would ever know them.
100%.
Like, I think that's like true kingdom legacy. I think.
Yeah.
Do you know the story of the Billy Graham story of how he came to like the faith?
Yeah. Was it through one of Billy Sunday's thing, or
It was a revivalist.
Yeah.
And
was it Billy Sunday or was
no, it was
somebody else?
another guy.
Yeah, and then he was like the only one that walked up. Some story like that.
Like his
Yeah.
wife made him go like a couple times, then he went, he got saved, and then he became like the Billy Graham,
Yeah.
But a lot of people, when you just
don't know
say
that. Yeah.
I mean, this is the point. We don't even know. We forget the revivalist name. Nobody ever knows. But that guy was doing what God had told him to do.
Yeah.
And then Billy Graham walked in, and we all know Billy Graham. And I think
Yep.
about, as I think about lineage, I think about legacy, what my life looks like afterwards. I'm like,
Yeah.
I wonder if the next Billy Graham's in my youth ministry.
Yeah.
And I think that is the way and the attitude in which I approach the ministry is like, there are so many church planters,
Yeah.
so many evangelists, missionaries who are in the youth ministry now.
Yep.
And so I don't look at it as a stepping stone. I look
Yep.
at it as my current assignment. We always think about the David
Yep.
situation is, he was anointed, but he was also like in the field doing his thing. And I think for myself, a lot of youth pastors, young adult pastors look at our current state of ministry. And this could be for somebody who's just serving in youth ministry.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
I'm only serving because it's a stepping stone to get the job,
Yeah.
or I'm a youth pastor and it's only a stepping stone to become the senior pastor, or you could even be in the workplace. And
Yep.
I'm only doing this level because it's a stepping stone to get to the CEO position, whatever it is.
Yep.
But we sometimes treat it as a stepping stone,
Yep.
and we don't always look at it as our current assignment.
That's good, bro.
And I think about my current legacy, and I'm like, you know what? If I didn't graduate to the next thing, if I was youth pastor 40 years and then I croaked, like
Yep.
what's my legacy look like? What students did I develop? And can my ceiling be their floor? I think when I look at what you did with Circuit Riders, like, cool, I'm not in it anymore. But I think about like what they're doing, and I think
Yeah.
about the students that are coming out. And I've met people that like, oh yeah, I graduated from, what is it called? The Circuit Rider
Yeah.
School or
Yeah, yeah.
whatever. And they're just like doing insane things. And
Yeah.
so I can look at, and I knew all these people before I even met you.
Yeah.
So it's cool because then I'm like, whoa, Sammy actually did something. You left, and now people are still coming to the faith. People are
Yeah.
still going across the nations, and they're still seeing people get
So
saved
good,
and
bro.
whatever. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that about you. I wrote
Yeah.
some questions down, just like stuff.
Oh,
I
I
feel like
love
if
that.
if I'm talking to Sammy, I want to ask these
Oh,
questions.
I love that.
Because I feel like you would give a good answer to like
Man,
some
I
of the young
appreciate
adults
it.
who.
And I'll say this before you get to the
Yeah,
question.
continue.
I think, because this is obviously, I know young adults are listening to
Yeah.
this. So are your youth.
Yeah.
So are, I believe, pastors.
Yeah.
I mean, we could all agree, like, that's a part of your life is like you want to give away whatever you've discovered.
Yeah.
That's what I love. One of the things I love about you. I would say for those who are listening and just reminding ourselves is like, there's the twofold, it's like heads and tails. There's the urgency of the call of God.
Yeah.
And then there's the legacy piece.
Yeah.
And I think like, don't allow the urgency of what you feel called to get you out of the legacy of what God wants to build
That's
in your
great.
life. And I think that when you look at Jesus, he never did the same miracle twice because it wasn't a formula, it was a relationship.
That's right.
But then also, a lot of times it was when Jesus was on the way that he was disrupted, and that's when the miracle happened.
Yeah.
So the first person he reveals himself as Messiah to is John 4, woman at the well. It's the very first person.
Yeah.
And I love it because to the religious, he would like hide himself in parables or confront them.
Yeah.
But to the broken, he would reveal himself.
That's so good.
And she was like a whole revival happened in the city because of that woman, right? And so I think that for us, when we think of like urgency and legacy and being faithful where we're at, is like, I think sometimes, and again, I'm saying I'm type A person, I'm Enneagram 8-7, I'm doing all this personality stuff because of what we're getting ready to step into. Competition's number one on my strength finders.
Wow.
So I want to get between point A to point B as quick as possible. But a lot of times I'll miss the moments with the Lord because they're dressed up as a disruption.
Wow.
Oh, I don't want to be disrupted, or I don't want to be. I don't want my schedule to veer. But truly, God is actually bringing that in. Same with woman at the well. Jesus was tired and wearied in his state, and the woman came up, and then he started talking to her, and a whole revival in the city happened in the midst of on his way.
Yeah.
And so I think for us, like, let's just remember like where we're going. Let's remember, even in the midst of the disruptions or going different ways, that the Lord's hand is in those moments.
It's so good.
And the other thing is what you said is, I think with millennial, Gen Z, and Gen A, I feel like with those generations is a huge heart. I think it shifted with millennials, but there's a huge heart for collaboration and team.
Yeah.
I think the future is team. The future isn't like, there's so many of us that are good friends across SoCal and even the nation.
Yeah.
We actually are in each other's life. Like, I've a few really great friends, pastors in the area, where we golf at least a few times. So I know I keep bringing it up, but I'm telling you,
You gotta
no,
say
but
it.
genuinely,
Yeah,
we love each other.
Yeah.
And we have a value for each other. And so I just think, like, don't just build your team, build a regional team that you could really kind of lean on and stuff like that. So those are just some thoughts.
I think kind of like what you're saying.
Yeah.
Something that's important to me is having the relationships in different proximities. Like,
Yep.
I have the relationships with people at my church.
Yep.
I have the relationships with people with other churches
Yep.
who are doing the exact same thing that I'm doing. So I think of like, Ray Clark is one of my best friends in the whole world, because we're both doing young
great.
adult ministry
Yep.
at the specific capacity. So though I have my brother, though I have my wife, though I have my closest friends,
Yep.
there is just a completely different weight that somebody in Houston would understand, because they're
100%.
carrying the weight of the ministry.
Yep.
I have other youth pastor friends, people who have graduated from the youth ministry space,
Yeah.
who are a little bit above me. I think we talked about this a little bit on y'all's podcast, but
Yeah.
like, I have different people that I go to for different things. Like, when I think about when I think about preaching,
Yep.
like, I have the person that I go to for my
Yep.
preaching is Pastor Dan. Like I said, if I was going to throw an event, I'd probably hit you up and be like, hey, I'm going to do this massive thing. How do I do it? Because you guys have done that.
Yeah.
I have different friends that I go to for different things.
So great.
And I think in the kingdom, I think we ought to like compartmentalize our friendships at times, because here's the dangerous part, is there are times where we will go to somebody with the expectation that they're going to be good in this field of our life, but
Yeah.
they're actually like not the person for that.
Right.
For example, like, I'm not going to go to a single friend for my marriage advice.
Right.
That's just like a very obvious
Right,
example.
right.
But I think a lot of young adults have a very hard time compartmentalizing their friends.
Yeah.
Like, you were really close for a season, but like, you're no longer close for this upcoming season, but
Yep.
you still expect them to be like hip to hip.
Yeah.
But that person got married, had kids, and you're still single. So like,
Yep.
the relationship and stuff changes. As you've kind of evolved in your life, you went from traveling all over the world to obviously you got married, now you have kids, now you're going to enter a season of church planting.
Yep.
How have you been able to keep those relationships tight knit? And then how have you managed and maneuvered shifting the friendships that, like, we were really close in this season, but because the requirement or even like the call of God in your life has changed, so the proximity changes to people.
Yep.
I think a lot of our friendships are, I think it's just basic, like, what is it, sociology, that like the proximity to someone oftentimes determines your friendship. So when my closest friends in high school are because I went to high school with them, and we all experience that when you graduate, you're no longer close to these people anymore. You're in college, you have people that you live with. You graduate college, you don't really talk as much anymore. How have you been able to navigate relationships and friendships through the different seasons of your life? And how have you, like, maybe give me like a miss that you've had, but like, how have you been able to maneuver that?
Yeah. A miss, you said?
Yeah, like a miss, like I actually,
for sure.
I forgot to, I realized this person probably isn't,
Yeah, for sure.
the same as we used to be.
I think I think a few things when you're sharing that. I think of not every friendship is lifelong, and I think in our being naive, right, and in our immature state at times, we think, oh, this is gonna be forever. Now there are gonna be those forever friends, but it's not as many probably as we think. I think it's about celebrating each season and what each person has.
That's great.
So I also think Proverbs says, right, in a multitude of counselors there is safety. So I think, like you shared, I'm a similar way. Like, I have a ton of people. I have different voices, mentors, all that stuff where I'm going to pull from them. And I'm also going to pull from multiple people where I'm like, hey, let me pull from them. You're going to have this perspective. You're going to have this perspective. And then ultimately praying together. And when you're married, then you're like, okay, you're going to sit down. You and your wife are going to be on the same page. And when you got a killer, like my wife, then you're like, let's run. Like,
she's beast.
We going for it. So I think friendship wise, that's what I would say is, like, for sure have those voices, multitude of counselors, their safety, be able to pull those people together. I think the thing that I was thinking, and then we'll talk about a miss. The thing that I was thinking is with friendships and stuff, like I said, when we celebrate those in each season, then we don't put the pressure on it.
Yeah.
Because the pressure is there when we're like, oh, we got to translate this friendship over to this next season.
Yeah.
And we're forcing it. I don't know if you've ever felt that, like where you forced a friendship or forced a relationship and you're like, this doesn't feel natural anymore.
Yeah.
Well, it's because like we're trying to bring old friends into new seasons.
Yeah.
And that doesn't work. Mm-hmm. It's really easy to see when you get saved, right? Because you have your unsaved friends. And it doesn't mean, I think there is a season where you consecrate yourself and then you can bring them back because you don't want to be impacted by your old self. But at the same time, when you get to a place where, like Jesus, he could go not something too crazy. Specifically around the area of friendship, I think, okay, here's a great one.
Yeah.
Here's a great one. This is early days, right? I remember talking to some friends of mine where this is when I was still single, early 20s, and some of my friends were getting married, and we had a group of friends, guy, girls together. By the way, I'll just say this, like, just as you get married, you're going to have, as a male, one female friend is going to be your wife.
That's right.
And the rest are going to be male.
Tell them.
For the wives, for the ladies, you're going to have one male friend, and the rest are going to be females. Now, you're going to have, co-ed friendships, but it's going to usually be like through your spouse.
Yeah.
And that's the healthiest thing. So that's what I would encourage people to say.
Yeah,
so at that time, we had all this friendship. It was good. No crossing the line. But I was frustrated because some of my friends, they just got married, 2 friends together. And I was like, man, I hate that friendship is changing. Why does it have to change? Yeah. And then now, years later, you think you're like, dang, that was such a stupid comment. Because it's like, I was expecting nothing to change in those relationships, but I wasn't aware for that. And praise the Lord, he had grace and mercy for me to understand those things to shift,
Yeah.
And so to me, I think it's like, just know like we're going to make mistakes. The other thing I would say is this, is a lot of times, especially you get into your 30s, right? You're getting there. You're close to it, spiritually, you're like 50. But when you get into your 30s, a lot of times it becomes lonely. We talk about, people aren't pursuing me. You're married, you have kids, whatever. Well, take it upon us to be the initiator.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm going to initiate with my friends. I'm going to initiate with my people. And I'm not going to be frustrated if someone else isn't initiating with me. I'm going to be the initiator.
That's great.
And so to me, my encouragement for people is like, if you feel like no one's initiating, you initiate.
Yeah.
It's the same thing when you enter into a room and there's a ton of people. You could enter into rooms and not every room you enter into, people want to listen to you. There are some rooms, right, where you're like, I enter in, I'm the youth pastor, I'm a young adult pastor, But in every room we enter into in life, we could always listen.
True.
And so if we take that approach, hey, instead of wanting to be heard, I'm going to listen, then that's just going to open up so many opportunities and doors,
great.
So those are something, but we could talk about, what about you for relationship-wise? Do you think of friendship, misses, stuff like that? What comes to mind for you?
Yeah, I heard Pastor Levi Lesko taught me that people in your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And you can compartmentalize and you can put them in those categories.
Yeah.
Then you're not really going to get damaged by people. You won't get jaded. You won't get hurt. So I'm thinking a lifetime, my wife.
Yep.
There are people in your life for a reason. So there are people... This is where you categorize the people who do you wrong, the people who do you dirty, the people who betray you, the people that hurt you. And that's it. Like you can learn so much from how people hurt you. And you can learn so much from how people did you wrong and betrayed you. What I realized in seasons of people doing me wrong and betraying me is it reveals what's actually in my heart, how I react, what comes out of my mouth, where my thoughts go. And so that could be the reason why I had to go through that thing. Like I look inward first and be like, dang, why did I react when that person did me wrong? Like, did I react with compassion and feel bad for them because I'm like, oh my gosh, they're struggling, so that's why they took it out on me? Mm-hmm. Or was I like, no, screw them too, And then there's the season. So there are friendships that you'll have them for a year, 2 years, 3 years. They could be your best friend. They might have been in your wedding. But then time goes by and you realize that it's just not the season for them anymore. So when we talk and we connect, it'll be great. Mm-hmm. And you call me, I'll pick up. And if you need me, I'm still here. But I think sometimes it is proximity. Sometimes it is just seasons changing. Different even maturity levels. Like I've realized that there is an outgrowing that we do in our friendships. That I've outgrown maybe some friends.
Yep.
And not to say that like being a Christian now invalidates some of those friendships.
Yeah.
But because we were just talking about this yesterday with a friend, that when you are, before you get saved, you have a group of friends.
Yep.
And then if you get saved and they don't, you begin to stop going to those places. You maybe don't do those things anymore. For me, it was like, I'm not going to a club no more. I'm not drinking. I'm not smoking. I'm not doing those things.
Yep.
And what I realized is I had to kind of get away from those specific friends because I wasn't going to be able to consecrate myself to be able to, be used by God or make Christian friendships because I was still stuck doing those things. What I realized is there was this season of my life where I was professed Christian and I wanted all the things of God. And I was reading my Bible and I was praying, but I would still continue to do the worldly things when I only got around these people.
Yeah, for sure.
So as time gone by, I realized that maybe I outgrew them, had to compartmentalize them from lifetime to season.
Yep.
And now, years go by, and I realized I could probably be around them and I don't change.
100%.
I could, because I've consecrated myself and because I've become set apart, different, other than, and I have a relationship with God that is so deeply convicted that now I can go back and now it's like, okay, I got to save those people. Or the Lord's going to use me to save them. I'm going to pray for them. I'm going to give them the gospel. And because I'm unwavering in my faith and I'm unshakable when I'm sitting down at a breakfast table, now I can go back and kind of pursue some of those friendships. But there is a season and there is a time where you have to let go of some of those friendships. You have to like let them go, let them kind of do their thing. I think there's also this balance of, we talk about how Jesus is grace and truth. And I think in a lot of our lives, there are seasons of grace and there are seasons of truth or in those friendships. So the grace seasons are, I'm going to keep inviting you. I'm going to keep trying to get you to come to church. I'm going to keep, because I get this question all the time. How come, or like my friends aren't Christian? Like, how do I save them? Or, I'm in a relationship and I got saved, but like they don't want to come to church anymore. What do I do? When do I know it's too late? When do I know to
Savior
let go?
complex.
Yes. And it's like, it's just, I give you so much grace until I kind of get to the point where now it's exhausting. And I realize that, you know what? The grace is I'm going to give to you. I'm going to keep inviting. I'm going to keep praying for you. But then I get to the truth part of, the truth is it's not my job to save you. And the truth is also that I'm probably not going to be the one to lead you to the Lord. So I'm going to move myself away. I'm going to remove myself from this friendship or at least create some distance. And I'll keep praying and I'll keep believing. But I probably can't continue to pursue that relationship or that friendship anymore because the truth is I'm probably not the one that's going to be able to bring you to the Lord.
And I think it's okay to, like, especially initially, it's okay to create that distance.
Yes.
And I think that when we have a hard time doing that, that's probably because that relationship or that activity is an idol in your life.
100%.
And what we do is we mask it with religious, spiritual language. Oh, no, I'm just in their life. I'm praying for it. No. Are you willing to lay it down and trust that the Lord, He is God. He's going to make it happen. And you could pray for that person or whatever. But if we have a hard time letting certain things go, it's probably because it's an idol in your life.
Yeah. Wow. That's so good.
Just things to think about and process. And it's like, how free do you want to be?
Great question.
I think that, sometimes... I call them, especially early days circuit riders, because I love, religious people kind of frustrate me. So I'd much rather be around lost people. So I'd have friends, call them friends on the fringes. And I remember Brian, my mentor, he would mention to me, he would say, listen, it's a right heart, great heart, keep going forward, but you cannot take on other people's rebellion. Meaning like, you can't want their breakthrough more than them.
That's great.
And if they're still in that process of wanting to, what I call, build their testimony, right? Walking in that rebellion, you got to hand them over to the fire of God and let that thing burn them out. You could be there for them, pray for them, all those things. But like so much of the time, I would be like, come on, let's go, let's go, let's go. I'm very similar where I'm like, I'm going to bring people with me. We're going to go. We're going somewhere. But many times where I'm like, I'm trying to bring someone who I want their freedom more than they do.
Yeah.
And that's just going to hurt you more than help you.
And it's crazy how Christ-like that is because I think in Romans 1, it talks about how God handed them over to their sin.
Yeah.
I think there's times where I look at friendships and I'm like, you know what? I got to stop being the savior and stop trying to have the savior. I'm going to just hand you over to whatever the Lord's going to do with you. I'm going to stop trying to save you. I'm going to stop doing whatever it is I have to do to, like, I feel like I'm dragging people along sometimes.
Yeah, and let them hit that breaking point. I was thinking, another thing when we're talking about team, this was early on, right when I was in between moving from the East Coast to Huntington Beach.
Yeah.
And I remember we were at Lee University. I was with my team, and the team I had assembled were all my best friends.
Wow.
And all loved the Lord. We were going campus to campus doing stuff. I think this had to have been 2012. And I remember Christy, who's, in HB, Brian's wife, who's still alive. Obviously, Brian passed. But they were both there together at that time. And Christy gave me a word in front of all my friends, said, you think you have a team, but you don't have a team. And what you have to do is you have to lay down what you think you have and move out here to HB. And you could build one team and multiply it into 8.
Wow. That's amazing.
And what's cool about that was that a lot of those friends that were there, some of them did come over later, but a lot of them are doing international missions, like killing it. But I wanted to build with my best friends at that time, they're still some of my closest friends, but I had to build with people that I was like, it's not the people initially I would say maybe I would choose, but then they became some of my closest friends. And so know that the Lord has the right people for us, right? Like
great.
For your team, for the youth pastor, young adult pastors watching, it might not be your closest friend. Maybe some of them will be.
Yeah.
But ask the Lord, God, who do I need in this season?
It's great.
God will bring those people, and you'll look back and you'll be like, man, it's been 5 years, and so-and-so's become my best friend. And I never would have, you're like, man, if we were in high school together, we never would have hung out.
No way.
But praise the Lord that we're building together. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, that's what I would say with some of those teams and stuff like that.
For you said you got this word. Let's talk about that for a moment.
Which word?
You just said right now. You said that the Christy gave you a word.
Yeah.
How impactful? Let's maybe go theological first, and then let's talk about that. So what do you believe about okay, I got this prophetic word of knowledge, something that stirred in your heart, something that spoke with you, resonated you. All things are tested, right? You test it, you bring it to the Lord, you pray through it. You're like, okay, I received this.
Yep.
I believe in the gifts of the Spirit. I believe that all those things are true. I've gotten words spoken over my life. I'm a walking testimony of words that were spoken over my life.
Me too.
Story time. At 13 years old, I was at a camp.
Yeah.
And out of all the students that are at the camp, the guy who was up on the stage called me out and talked about how there was a fire, how I was going to be a revivalist. And he said these words,
I love it.
God can trust you.
Yeah.
And then he said that, talking about using my voice, saying something about our generation. It was very muffled and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I just remember being on the carpet and just crying
Holy
and whatever.
Ghost.
And so I remember this moment at 13 years old.
For sure.
And it was kind of marking in a sense, but then as I got older, 17, 18 years old, I kind of walked away from the Lord, right?
Yep.
So time goes by, come back to church. I've been in it at this point, probably about 7 years. And then I go to a conference, and the last night out of all the nights at the conference, it's a youth conference. I took a bunch of students, and the person up on the stage gives me a word.
Yeah.
And it is almost word for word the same thing I got at 13 years old. It unlocked the bits and pieces and the memory that I had at 13 years old. Same thing. God can trust you. Yeah. You're going to use your voice. It's going to rock the nations. You're a revivalist. There's a fire. There's no cap. There's no lid to what God's going to do with your life. All this kind of stuff. And I was like, what the heck? There's no way that at 13 years old, I got this thing.
Right.
And then at 25 years old, I got the same word. And I've been around very prophetic voices. I've been around a lot of people that carry a deep reverence for the Lord, the knowledge of the word, but also it is at times supernatural where I'm like, it feels like they're speaking on behalf of God.
Right.
They're given an insight to people. Yeah. And again, I believe that all these things should be tested. There's times where I've gotten a prophetic word and I'm like, that's bunk. I don't receive that.
Oh yeah, for sure. All the time.
But there are trusted voices, or there are people that I've been around where I'm like, wow, they really speak on behalf of God. And so what I do is I pray into those words where I get them. And when I spend time in prayer, I'm like, okay, this person said these things. I have it written down. A lot of times I have voice memos, so I'll listen to them and I'll pray through those things. How has a word impacted your life? And how important is it to give the word that you're feeling? Or how important it is you feel like for the body to continue to move in these areas, or, to
operate in the prophetic and spiritual gifts. Yeah. Man, that's so good. I love that word for you at 13. And then you said, when was it?
26, actually. 26, yeah.
I love it. I was thinking so I grew up in a Christian home. Parents loved the Lord. I love God, and I would call my walk with the Lord WCBC, right, with Christ, but compromising.
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
I loved God, but I didn't want to be involved with religion, all this stuff. But for me, so like parents did missions, all this stuff, lived in the Dominican Republic as a missionary kid. There's a whole story with it. But mine was 17. I was 17 at a youth camp. I was helping out because I graduated high school a year early. And at 17, even though I was still like partying, drinking, smoking, but like always had a pull for the Lord in worship, the speaker came up to me and said, "You got to call a God over your life. You got to lead a generation, those crazy things. Because, but you got to decide, are you going to live for yourself or are you going to live for the Lord?"
Wow.
And the Lord had already shown me different things, earlier in that year. And it's one of those things, like if you're Latino or a minority in any sense, you have like 17 moms,
Yeah.
You always like, and so everyone was coming up and saying like, "Mijo, you got to call God over your life." I'm like, yeah, I get it. I know. But it was that moment where it's like the guy who spoke, I don't even know his name.
Yeah.
I don't even know where he's at, but spoke, it changed the trajectory of my life.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'm going to do a gap year, right? I'm going to focus on the Lord because the plan was to come down to SoCal, get like international business and go into law or something like that.
Yeah.
But that word changed my life. Now, almost 20 years later, I'm still in full-time ministry,
Wow.
getting ready to church plant because someone stepped out and gave a word.
Yeah.
So it's so important to step out. Now, again, when I'm giving words, so an encouragement for people, I'm not saying, "Oh, thus say the Lord."
Yeah.
I'm sharing, hey, I felt like God was saying something. So like, for example, like real example, current one with the OG Harry back there, legend. We were together in worship. I felt a word for him. So I just like, "Hey, can I pray for you?" It's like, yeah. So then I share what I was feeling. And what I like to do is I always like to, hey, does that make sense?
Yep.
I like to ask people, just pray into it. I'm not giving directional encouragement is like, don't prophesy dates and babies, names, dates, whatever it is, But there are certain moments where I'll step out and share. So share with them. But like whenever you're getting a word, you always want to say, hey, just test it, hold on to it. A lot of times too, it might not make any sense.
Yep.
There's times when I'm like, I've got a word. Well, what I call is I shelf it. I'll put it on the shelf.
Yeah.
Right. And I'll look back 5 years later and be like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that word was dead on, but it was for 5 years from now.
Yeah.
So I think like with the spiritual gifts, with walking in the prophetic, with all those things, man, they're so important.
Yeah.
It's so key to walk and practice those moments, really step out in faith in those moments, because that word changed your life at 13
Yes.
and 26. That word changed my life at 17. And who knows the words that, like, we've had moments, I think we were just talking about this too on Beyond the Letter podcast. You just never know what you're sharing and someone else is saying, like, oh my gosh, like, that word changed my life. I'm a missionary. I've literally heard people say, when you prayed for me that one time, it changed my life. I'm a missionary in this nation. And I don't even remember.
That's amazing.
It's nothing against special. And I've had a ton of moments where I've given a word and it made sense or didn't make sense, but I'm stepping out in faith with it, But I would say like the encouragement to operate in that is so, so important. The hunger for spirituality in our generation, both for the saved and not saved.
Yeah.
It's important for us to know. Jesus said, the gates of hell will not prevail. He says, I give you the keys of the kingdom, right? So we have keys, and we're wondering, okay, are these, charismatic keys?
Yeah.
Are these, Baptist keys, evangelical? Like, are these keys for me or not? But they're kingdom keys. And what God wants to do is he wants us to operate in kingdom keys, not in our just denominational keys. And I love every denomination. I've been around all of them. It's so beautiful. But I think that the things of the Spirit God wants to unlock in our life and have us walk that out in a relationship. So those are some things I was thinking.
Yeah, I think a couple ways that I just taught this on like a New Year's Zoom, but like hearing the voice of God. And I think there's multiple different ways that I feel like the Lord spoke to me. Number one, obviously his word. If it contradicts the scripture, it's not from God.
Yeah.
And I heard my father-in-law say that if you haven't heard from God in a long time, read your Bible out loud because he's speaking. Number two is through trusted voices. So not just a voice, but like a trusted voice. And there's times where the Lord will have a random person probably give you a word, or there's times where somebody's randomly connecting me on Instagram, send me like a voice memo, hey, I got this word for you. And it has been dead on. I'm that is the craziest thing.
It is crazy.
And I've got some weird ones, but it has been dead on
sure.
where people have spoken through. But I attest it. Sometimes I've submitted it to wise counsel. given to me that I'm holding on to for when I'm 60.
100%.
You know? And hopefully, and I'm praying through, and I hope like the Lord comes through in those ways.
Yeah,
That's
for sure.
cool. But I think the third way that the Lord speaks is a lot of like dream and vision.
Oh yeah.
Like obviously prayer, right? But like I think dream and vision, like there are, I'm walking in dreams that I've dreamt when I was sleeping.
Oh yeah.
I'm walking in visions that I've had when I've just been in the secret place.
Yep.
The young adults at One and All, the church that I'm at, that was sparked from a dream that I had while I was sleeping. That the place was covered with a hand that was pierced but now healed, and it was filled with young adults. And I saw it in the spirit, and I'm like, we got to do young adults at this church.
The church plant was sparked out of a dream.
Talk to me about that. How does that happen?
Do you want to hear it?
Yeah, let's go.
It's a crazy one. Let's see if I have it here. I wrote part of it down. I'll tell you that. Well, okay, and then I'll say this to you. What you said sparked some thoughts is, okay, a few things. Some people listening, right, and I've been there too, is you're like, man, I need another word. I need another word, right? I need another word, another word. And you're like, oh, I feel like God's silent or he's not speaking. Well, he's always speaking. Read the word, right? Like you said, in the book of John, it says, my sheep hear my voice and follow me. So
amen.
We could all hear his voice. And if you're having a hard time with it, again, I've been married to my wife, Chandler. We're going on 8 years, right? Or we've done 8. We're working on our 9th year. We have a 3-year-old, 1-year-old. The more I get to know her, the more I've been with her, the easier I could hear her voice.
Yeah.
So because I have relationships and access, I could hear her voice, right? But if she was just a random person in the crowd and everyone shout, so like if there's a big crowd and Chandler yells my name, Sammy, I know, oh, that's my wife.
Yeah.
Well, it's because I've been around her for so much time.
Yeah.
So if we're not around his word, if we're not in love with his word,
That's right.
then we're not going to know what his voice sounds like.
Yeah.
Right?
Like if you don't know the word, how are you going to know his voice?
100%. And I think another encouragement for I love to share this is that I think it's close to like 5%, maybe more now, but 5% of most Christians have never read the Bible cover to cover.
That's crazy.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
So right now, again, not just like one thing I felt I like to do every few years. Some people do it every year, but I'm reading the Bible in 30 days.
You're doing the shred right now.
Yeah, I'm doing the shred.
Wow.
So I just would encourage people, whether you do it in 30, 90, or a year, you could do it a year. Just know that, like, hey, if you've never read the Bible cover to cover, like, do it. Like, your life will be so much better.
Yeah.
The other thing is, like, literally, if you are wondering, okay, I've gotten a word, I need another word, God's not speaking, well, it's probably because you haven't been obedient and faithful to the past word.
That's right.
And so what happens is we need to make sure we're being obedient and faithful to the past word so that we could get the next word. You look at any person with a call of God in life in the Bible, look at I've just been going through Genesis, going into, obviously Leviticus, today. But look at the call of God. I was just like listening and reading about Jacob, where he's like worked for both of his wives. It says, and he wanted to marry Rachel, worked 7 years, right? Crazy. It's great. Like the years of preparation. You look at Moses, 40 years in the wilderness after killing the Egyptian to try and make his calling happen.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until he's 80 when the burning bush happened.
Yeah.
And then he goes back. So I think a lot of times, like we get a word, and in 6 months, if it doesn't happen, we move on, when maybe that word is preparing you for what's going forward.
That's so good.
That's what I'd say. As far as, I'll paraphrase for the dream.
Yeah.
And then I'll tell you later off camera, and maybe you guys, if you hit me about it. But long story short, when I turned 30, praying and seeking the Lord, that's when the Lord spoke to my wife and I about shifting out of circuit riders, which there was never a plan to do that. Felt like ministry and business would be in my 30s, and I felt like the Lord spoke something that's really clear to me. He said, you've known how to gather, now I want to teach you really how to grow.
It's great.
And I was like, okay.
Good word.
So then when we were living in Houston for working with churches, this was almost 3.5 years ago, I had a dream where I was with our church plant and early planters. And I said to the room, I said that this isn't going to be, a flashy or a sexy church, right? It's not going to be something that's trendy. It's going to be something that ties in with what God is saying. And I used this word I've never used before. I said, we're going to restore the historicity. And historicity just means the actual facts of what happened in real life and not the stories that came from it. of what the church is and was and what it was meant to be, the original mission. And then in the dream, I was in worship, and I got a prophetic word in that room, which it was a group of pastors, a group of us. It was about God giving back arrows to his Davids. The pastors represented David, and the arrows represented the words to speak the truth in love.
It's great.
Letting the pastors know that their season isn't over and that they could keep going. And then I woke up. And then I knew, I was like, oh man, God, are you asking us to church plant?
Wow.
And that was 3.5, and I still kept it on our heart and really held on to that, But like you said, those dreams, like pay attention to that. Look at anyone who's God moved in their life. Dreams were a big part of it.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Not just dreams, but dreams and obedient to the dream.
There it is. There it is. There it is.
All right. See, we're cool on time, but we'll wrap up with this question. So the idea and the premise.
I got a question for you.
You go first. You go first. So we'll finish on mine.
You finish on yours?
Yeah, I'll finish on my question. Right. Yeah, you go.
I was thinking about this question for you is if you, 15, again, I've been reading Genesis. So let's say in 15 minutes, you're about to walk with God like Enoch, right? It says Enoch walked with God and he was no more. God took him, right? If you knew that in 15 minutes or whatever it was going to be that way, this was your final kind of broadcast to the young adults, to people. If you could leave them with encouragement, a word of wisdom, a practice, and a truth, right? What would you want to say? Hey, this is what I'm leaving you with. I'm leaving you with a practice, or do this, Yeah. I'm leaving you with some wisdom, and just like a final charge. What comes to mind?
Yeah. I mean, I guess that leads into the question I was going to ask you.
Amen,
but it really is. It's so perfectly tied and connected. So you kind of just reversed the question on me. Basically, I guess the wisdom. You see an act of obedience. What'd you say? What was the other one?
Just the thoughts that came to me is like just a charge, a word of wisdom, a practice, and a truth. Like just you're giving them your last because I think like a lot of times we'll give people wisdom words, but like what would be, I would say maybe twofold. What would be a truth, a word of wisdom, like you want to encourage and charge them with, but also a practice, and the practice might be like out of the box.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's the read your word, do all those things, But is there something that you would encourage someone, hey, do this?
Yeah.
And
2 things.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
I like it.
The first is with the verse that's impacted me for the last few years.
Yeah.
It's the Ephesians 3:20, that God can do an exceedingly and abundantly more than you can ever ask, think, or imagine. And this word got deposited in my heart a couple years ago when the word was miracle for my year.
Yeah.
It was the idea that if you can imagine it, God can exceed it.
Yep.
As somebody who is a creative, I ideate, I innovate. I'm like, that's where I think outside of the box.
Yeah.
There is, like, I got the handle, the Young Adult Podcast, because nobody had done it yet.
Love it.
I think about, there was no young adult ministries that were kind of jumping 5 years ago. So I kind of stepped into that space with a covering, of course. I think there's a few things that I have planned and hidden in my heart that haven't been done before, but they will be done because I feel like the Lord has given me that idea. And I've realized that oftentimes I think about it and I imagine it, and my imagination is just a small inkling of what the Lord's actually going to do with it. When I thought about the young adult ministry, I'm like, oh, this is what it's going to be like. And then God has exceeded that expectation. When I think about this podcast, I think about, it was supposed to be done a certain way with certain people and certain places, but God has already exceeded that.
Yeah, for sure.
The reach, the people, all the environment, the friendships. Yep. And so I think about, if you're a young adult out there, or if you're just a person listening, that God will exceed whatever it is that you can imagine, that the human mind can comprehend things, and the human mind can understand only a little bit of the world, but whatever seed it is that you have, God can infinitely multiply that beyond the human comprehension. So that's how I would say Ephesians 3:20, God can do exceedingly and abundantly more than you can ever ask, think, imagine. But the last one, I'm going to give it, and then I'm going to flip it back on you because it's the ending question, is the whole reason why I started this Young Adult Podcast was the idea that too many people couldn't finish the race. Yep. Paul writes to Timothy, he said, I ran the race, I've fought the fight, he ended well.
Yep.
It sucks to me and it breaks my heart that there are so many people that have failed to end well.
Yeah.
And there are people who have failed great, and they're not going to be in the headlines because we don't celebrate people who have ended well. So, but we do see tons of moral failures. We see the people who have fell, and my heart breaks. I'm like not mad at it. I'm just like, dang, like the enemy got another one, And I think John Maxwell talks about this idea of finishing, or he's starting with the end in mind. The New York Times wrote when Tim Keller had died, it's almost like we're holding our breath, hoping that somebody has finished well. Because after the Ravi Zacharias thing, it's like, oh, we thought he ended well, and then months later something came out. So all to be said is I started this podcast to tell 21-year-olds to finish well.
Yeah.
Like get a vision of what your life looks like at 85. Yep. Okay, you're a grandfather to how many kids and how many kids do they have? Like, did you step into ministry? Did you do what the Lord called you to do? Did you pray for that one random person you're supposed to pray for?
Yeah.
Did you walk in obedience? Like, and not just obedience, but like a radical obedience. Like whatever it is that you feel like the Lord has already given you insight to. I think at 20-something years old, we don't even pray about what life at 80 looks like. Mm-hmm. And I just have a strong conviction to help empower, equip, and push the next generation into finishing well. So you could be 22 thinking about what the heck, I'm not even married yet. I'm still trying to get a vision for what my wife could possibly look like. Yeah. But I'm thinking about like, could you finish, can you get a vision of what finishing well looks like at 80 something years old? And so that would be like the act. And so that looks different for everybody. What finishing well may look like differently, like for each and every person who's listening to this podcast. But I would encourage them just finish well, get a well done, good and faithful servant. I don't think well done is reserved just for when you get to heaven. I think well done is also for transitioning from season to season. Yeah. Well done is transition for how well you stewarded what God gave you. Well done is transition for how good of So that would be like the mandate, and like that's the charge, and the reason why we started this. That's why like the logo for like the cover of this is like it looks like a track, and there's like people running on the track. Because it's like the idea of like we're currently young adults running the race, but like there's no finish line on it because I'm like we're on this race together, and the hope is that you would finish well. Yep. And so all the content that we're putting out is through the lens of how can I encourage young adults to not only live life really good now and to have a better walk with God and increase their faith, but it's so that they may finish well. So now asking you, saying, Pastor Sammy, what does finishing well look like for you? What is the couple things that if you were to tell your 80-year-old, like if your 80-year-old self were to come back and talk to you now, like what would be hey, good job on this, or this is what you need to do, or you're talking to a young adult. There's an 18-year-old out there who's listening. What's this is what you got to do to finish well, or this is what finishing well looks like, and then we'll end right there.
That's great. Great question. I love this podcast, bro. I think it's going to continue to explode. I think it's such a needed space.
Thanks.
And I love that you kind of create that space with the team. Twofold. One, when you're asking for me, I don't want to sacrifice my family on the altar of ministry. So even as great as a ministry can be, I don't want to be that person that says, look at everything I did, but then my family's just running amok and I've lost them because I prioritized, I've made an idol out of ministry. Wow. Now, I think that you could swing both ways. Like I'm from the generation that we work hard and we grind, work hard, play hard, rest hard kind of deal. But I think that you could do it together. Biblically, you look at the word, a lot of times these people that had great calls of God, very few had kids that followed the Lord. Wow. In the Bible.
Yeah.
So I just think that, and how God created Adam and Eve, be fruitful and multiply, the way that he was telling them to take over the earth was to do it in the family unit. And so I think that there's something very beautiful about that. Yeah. So I think stuff like that, I think you said it as well, like you want to be obedient, you want to be obedient to what the Lord said. I think that a lot of times what happens is there are times when our vision outruns the grace over our life. Yeah. Something that I've been thinking about the last few years is and I'm a person that I love vision. I have a lot of vision all the time, but I want to operate in the grace God gave me.
That's right.
I don't care about anything else or anyone else. Like I love what God's doing all over the world, but God, what's the grace you've given me? Yeah. Okay, now give me vision for that grace. Yeah. I don't want to have, I have this big vision and my vision outran my grace, and then I'm stumbled because God hasn't given me grace in that area, that sphere. I want to be obedient to that. I want that, like you said, that well done in each season and even at the end of the day. So for me, it's like love my family well, be obedient to what God has given me over the grace over my life, and then to continue to equip those. Like I want to see it multiply. Yeah. I think that I want to demystify areas of where it's like, this is only relegated to the few. No, it's actually for all. Yeah. And really about seeing everyone equipped in that. when I think of the 18-year-old, the 20-year-old, the young adult pastor, or just young adult person who's watching, I just think of a few things. I think of kind of out of the box. One, just submit yourself to an incredible church, mentor, voice. Radically serve in your teens and 20s.
Yes.
Radically serve. And as you do that, then your vision, what God has created in you, will start to clarify more. And with the person that you are submitting to, that you're under, that you love, they are also hopefully going to be very releasing to say, hey, I see it in you and I want to release you out.
Yeah.
So I think stuff like that. I think of simple things like I said before, like fall in love with the word, fall in love with doing the simple things.
Yes.
Like I think it's like read your word, pray, worship, share the gospel.
Yep.
Get close to the broken. That's what I would encourage people to do is like a lot of times we get into this place where we get saved and then we're out of touch with humanity.
Yep.
Go into your city, into your high school, into your college, into your workplace, and get involved in the world and see the brokenness of humanity. Because the brokenness of humanity will cause us to be like, Lord, I need something greater to reach into this area. So those would be some of the things. And then I would say, out of the box, last thing, and I'll hand it over to you to finish is, man, have fun.
Yeah.
My rules whenever I would lead tour teams early on was, hey, these are my rules. Let's have fun. We're going to see fruit because John 15 says God desires that we bear much fruit and fruit that would remain. So it's a command for us to bear fruit. And the third was we're a family.
That's great.
And although it might be dysfunctional at times, hey, we're going to do it together. So have fun, see fruit, find your family. And then the last advice, I think I might have shared this before on somewhere else, is I was asking, Bayless Conley, he's a pastor, handed it off to his son Harrison, Cottonwood Church. But Bayless out in Orange County, if you don't know Cottonwood, incredible. But I was asking him, hey, what would you, same question, like, I want to finish well, I want to do this, like, tell me, like, built incredible, like, church. He's just an incredible man of God. And he said he asked that same question to two different people. He asked that question to Oral Roberts.
Wow.
And he asked that question to another guy. And both of these guys said, again, it's going back, you guys are going to laugh at me, but they essentially said pick up a hobby. And but all of them were golfers, and they said pick up golf. Dang. And like learn how to enjoy, learn how to unplug, find something that you enjoy. So Bayless, right, Pastor Bayless, he golfs and he does deep sea like fishing and diving, right? And I think like it's funny because we want these spiritual moments. We want these like pray for 7 hours a day. Yeah. And you're like, oh, I can't do that. You know, like I'm not. But what I love about like Oral, who's an incredible revivalist, evangelist, great legacy, another massive, leader, pastor internationally. They were both like, no, find a hobby. Yeah. Find something that you can unplug and enjoy. Yeah. And so that's what I would say is like, find those moments, enjoy it. And then being Puerto Rican, you have multiple closings. But I just think like we're doing so much better than you think you're doing. Yeah. Like you're like, we put so much pressure on ourselves. And so enjoy, like, just be like, although I may not be where I want to be. Yep. I'm not where I used to be. It's good. And so just really knowing like, hey, give yourself time to go through that. So those are kind of some of the thoughts.
I love the falling in love with Jesus portion. I heard somebody say that I've never seen somebody's kids say that, or he said, I never saw somebody that lost their kids in the church because they loved Jesus too much. Yeah. They only saw people's kids walk away from Jesus because they loved what ministry gave them too much. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's such thing as loving Jesus too much. That if you love Jesus with your whole heart, that your kids will stay in the faith. It's when you go to ministry to get the things at church that you didn't get at home. It's the affirmation, the power, the respect that when you get that in the ministry, but you don't get that in the home, that's when you start to see the kids run away from Jesus, is because they got something that they didn't get at home that they loved in the church. So this pastor said, I've never seen anybody love Jesus too much. That it's impossible to love Jesus too much. That you're supposed to love Jesus with heart, soul, mind, strength, everything. And so as I think about myself, I think about my future, I think about my kids. I'm like, I just want to love Jesus so much that they love Jesus.
100%.
It's contagious. So
100%.
Anyways, that's it. Man, Pastor Sammy, thank you for being here.
Thank you, bro.
This is our first episode. I mean, you heard it all. The sirens, the people
It's dope. I love it.
It was cool. It feels like chill, like Canada.
We in the city
People
here.
are honking and
Yeah.
all the lights and everything. Anyways, love you so much. Thanks
Love
for
you,
being
bro.
here.
Thank you.
Love you all. See you on the next episode.